have to get that signed copy version for all the poets to sign. It's very important.
Same old, same old. Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Now, Lawrence, look this way. Now look up. Look down.
Are you ready, Nelson?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. She's hiding.
I wanted to get a beer, actually.
Poets be aware of that. It's all right? Okay. Okay, great. So our first poet is Lynn Appel. She's a newcomer to the Poet's Feet issue. Lynn?
Good evening. I'm going to read something called She, He, They. She, He, They. And it goes like this. She was not a girl. She was a woman. And she was living in a very strange time. She took for granted the updated version of liberty she was born with while being female. She had her predecessors to thank for those, her mothers and aunts and mentors who fought for the rights of their daughters in the realm of this man's world. She grew up never questioning her ability to do or be whatever she desired. He was not a boy, he was a man, and he was living under this new guise. His formative years hadn't accommodated these changes in the mode of the little girl. Caught in the old moray, boys were still being taught to lead and earn, not ever to cry. And when they both grew up, they tried to get along. They were meant to fall in love, to unite in storybook passion, procreate, and live eternally together as one. Yet the synchronicity had somehow disappeared. They lost each other's track. The woman, in her newly secured independent glory, pretended she didn't need a man. He, in turn, was intimidated by her seeming lack of desire for him. She was the childbearer that could tackle any pain. He was his mother's skirt under a tactful sheath of ego-centered security. Of course she was a threat. He'd been taught early on not to know his true feelings, and he couldn't share his fears, so he withdrew. He said, I can't. He said, it's not worth it. But what he really thought was that he couldn't trust himself. He couldn't reveal his flaws without failing in his own mind. And if he did, she might take them for weakness. So, separately, they continued an unglued life, pretending ever so gaily that being single in a city is just fine anyhow. And in their spare time, they lolly alone, bored with the din of the television, while their fingers traveled the lengths of their own bodies, until finally a moment of release, or an end, followed by a beginning. Anything bearing a moment's gratification, they eat, they dream, they smoke, they read, they listen to the ominous sounds of the lonely night, and long for each other.
Believe this, but we now have found the microphones, so we're going to take a minute to set them up. Sorry, Liz. You get a second chance if you like.
Yeah, that's all right.
So we're going to just take a minute to set that up. Once again, Lynn Appel.
Hey,
Again?
back again.
We love you, baby. What was the name of the book?
Maybe you can hear it this time. The name is She, He, They. Camera roll. Action. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. was not a girl, she was a woman, and she was living in a very strange time. She took for granted the updated version of liberty she was born with while being female. She had her predecessors to thank for those, her mothers and aunts and mentors who fought for the rights of their daughters in the realm of this man's world. She grew up never questioning her choices or her ability to do or be whatever she desired. He was not a boy, he was a man, and he was living under this new guise. His formative years hadn't accommodated the changes in the mode of the little girl. Caught in the old moray, he was still being taught to lead and earn and not ever to cry. And when they both grew up, they tried to get along. They were meant to fall in love, to unite in storybook passion, to procreate and live eternally together as one. Yet the synchronicity had somehow disappeared. They lost each other's track. The woman, in her newly secured, independent glory, pretended she didn't need a man. He, in turn, was intimidated by her seeming lack of desire for him. She was the childbearer and could tackle any pain. He was his mother's skirt under a tactful sheath of ego-centered security. Of course she was a threat. He'd been taught early on not to know his true feelings, and he couldn't share his fears. So he withdrew. He said, "I can't." He said, "It's not worth it." But what he really thought was that he couldn't trust himself. He couldn't reveal his flaws without failing his own mind. And if he did, she might take them for weakness. So, separately, they continued in an unglued life, pretending ever so gaily that being single in a city is just fine anyhow. And in their spare time, they lolly alone, bored with the din of the television, while their fingers travel the lengths of their own bodies until finally a moment of release, or an end, followed by a beginning. Anything bearing a moment's gratification. They eat, they dream, they sleep, they smoke, they read, they listen to the ominous sounds of the lonely night and long for each other.
So that was Lynn Appel. And the next poet has come all the way from Pennsylvania, originally from Los Angeles, John Pingree. Welcome to New York.
These lights are.
You love it, you love
You know
it.
you're there. This is called Godiva, or Godiva, or Godiva. Black boiling kettle clouds burn in the sky. God's wrath burns parched throats dry. Thunder says, "You are lucky a loving God handles the kettle. Your world cup is much too brittle for even a teardrop of God's wrath tea." Pennyroyal, rue, cohash, and yarrow. Knowledge of nature will drive away your sorrow. Thunderstorm. Religious reform. God wakes up, lawyer Luther. Preacher Martin, preach up a storm. All men are created by any means necessary. Black Panthers, Pink Panthers. We're all looking for a few good women or men. We're raising up an army. Give me sodomy or give me death. Flesh will yield to flesh against the old common law. The older generation shall stand fast, then give way. Then all things shall be held in common among friends. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. War, war, worship. 1933, Germany. Optimistic paganism stills their hearts in all religion. What a price to pay, 1993, and still we pay. Not C. Thou shalt not construct idols. You know how men are. Lovely goddess of the night, I pray to you with all my might, let the hatred against women ebb, then die. Let women be free, let humanity thrive. Give me breasticles or give me death. Shrimp, do it. Frogs, do it. Even certain tropical fish, do it. Let's do it. Let's change our sex. God, Diva. Thou shalt not misuse the name of the Lord, sanctimonious humbug. We are all gods and might as well get used to it. Light a red candle, face south, with the third finger of your left hand. Rub a few drops of your menstrual blood on the candle. Sick, 69. One moment. Thou shalt honor the Sabbath day, drawing down the moon, sky-clad commune. Do as thou will, roll the dice. Abracadabra, sacrifice. Die it. Try it, you'll like it. Fasting cripples darkness and selfishness. Be fruitful and multiply, and make history her story, not her heresy. Christian interlude, pagan renaissance, quien sabe. Thou shalt honor thy father and mother. I want to tell you about my baby boy. He's 17 and he loves his daddy. He don't trust guys in suits and ties. And his mama, she taught him how to hypnotize everyone. He's having so much fun. Our family tree is growing every day. We got moms for dads and sisters grow. Thou shalt not murder. Leonard Matlovich died of AIDS in 1988. He joined the Air Force at the age of 19, was a decorated Vietnam veteran, and was discharged in 1975 because of his sexuality. His tombstone says, a gay Vietnam veteran. When I was in the military, they gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving 1. I remember that day. I decided to be gay, I started swishing and dishing and fishing for Mr. Right. Almost every night a real daddy to hold me and love me tight. Discos, dancing and dudes, poppers, pills and lewds, until that dreaded test, until that virus messed with the magic in John's life. Cut like a rusty knife. We went together, my squeeze and I positive, he negative. I thought I'd die. He soon disappeared as I'd feared. The virus was mine and mine alone. My divine retribution, says Mr. Pat Prick Buchanan. My immaculate infection, says my God's understanding. Out of the closet in so many ways, out of myself and this 7th day days. Started loving myself, gay and God, loving it too. Started eating better, McGarbage just will not do. I told them all, my moms, my dads, my sisters, my bros, all the ones I love, I shared this weight, and God shared above. Now I'm beyond straight and gay. I'd rather concentrate, meditate on always being in this immaculate human state. Yo. Thou shalt not, you know there's the 10 commandments, and then I'll end this, in case you're wondering. I won't go on forever. Thou shalt not commit adultery unless you happen to be the Reverend Jim Baker and his little Bo Peep. Jessica, by helping the shepherd, you're helping the sheep. Fall, false. Thou shalt not steal. I can't live a lie. Aka baka, what a crocka, aka baka doo-doo. Here comes Uncle Scam. Better watch out, he's gonna steal it from YOU. Colorado, Rocky Mountain High. I will not pay taxes in a state that does not recognize me as an equal citizen. Go to hell. Go directly to hell. Do not pass heaven. Do not collect $666 inflation. If you go to hell, so what? You were born in jail. You gotta pay to be free. The price of freedom is death. Give me liberty or give me death. Shabazz. You know Shabazz was Malcolm X. Good movie. Thou shalt not lie with mankind as with womankind. Jonathan, your love for me was more wonderful than that of women. Congress shall pass no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Abnormal deviation, spiritual castration. Freedom of speech, watch what you teach. From the schoolyard to the graveyard. This is my rifle, this is my gun. One is for killing, one is for fun. Yankee Doodle, get it up. Yankee Doodle, dandy. Crank that music, watch the steps, and with the girls be handy. You ass, you're asking for it. Y'all better not boot me out of the hood with none of your homies' boxes out of property. Black I am and much desired. Men they hunt me till they're tired. I weary horse and weary man, solve my riddle if you can. I will give to any person who will apprehend and deliver my slave to me the sum of $69. Sex worship. Mutiny in the country. Well, golly, it's Uncle Samantha and G.I. Josie. Look at her behind. She calls it hair supremacy. And Shazam, will you just look at that battering ram? Hey, Sarge, how about a dishonorable discharge? On your knees, soldier. Now say pretty, please. Well, golly, it's the latrine queen, and she's playing a piano like it's a flute. Forgive them, Lord. They don't know if it's a biological voice or an immoral choice. What's she playing? Is that taps? No, listen, maybe it raps. Silent night, holy night, all is calm before the storm. Thank you.
There were no restrictions on the readings, so poets will do whatever they like, which makes it kind of exciting. Good crow, by the way.
Crow?
That's
Crow
called a
post.
crow.
That's
Yo,
you're right.
crow,
That's what
yeah.
it is.
Our next poet is Robert Epstein, who should also recognize the crow since he teaches yoga.
It was a good crow.
Yeah, it was a good crow. Okay, welcome.
I wake up in the middle of an activity. I'm sorting out the world. The best digestion is no digestion. One heart, one mind, no gloves. The door in the mirror opened and the music got louder. There's a real dog barking out there instead of the one on TV. I just want to slice off the top of his head and see if there's a brain in there or a lizard. Having gone insane, I am attempting to part my hair. In the night, my stocking searches for my head. Under the stare of street lamps, the three wise men sit down. I wish I was a millionaire, and I wish I had a lobotomy, and I wish I had a beach chair. The buildings suddenly open their eyes and look at you. Everything's dangerous. That's why the Buddha kept his mouth shut. The parody of what is continues. The next poem is called Friend. I think about him when I think about him. The waves come through, sadness and anger. The schism of the eyes propped up by a tight diaphragm. The mind is in the diaphragm. The mind is in the heart. When my mind is vacant, there is only the rough display of shadows rushing like wind around the backs of my feet. One of the many easy sketches, the forces of nature wash over the world, then washing them away with some other experiment. All life in flux, relationships like seeds, taking root or dissolving in the great abstraction. But it is much more telling in the moment, in the dark spaces of the mind, when I turn and watch him gradually getting smaller. Wishes. I wish that a really good storm would come and wash off the back of my air conditioner. I wish that people would come and live on my fire escape. I wish that one hand would keep on washing the other until it was really clean. I wish my hands could do without me. I wish my hands were free for other things. I wish that my eyes would find their place in heaven and keep looking up there and establish a lifeline and pull my body up part by part. I wish that the long arm of the law would grasp me and pick me up and get me out of here. I wish I was alone. I wish I was lying. I wish I could see. This next poem is called Love Store, an institution which you may be familiar with if you live in the city. I go to the Love Store trying to find something to buy in a lighted place where the people are friendly and they all know me, so I don't have to go straight home at night to the dark TV and phone machine. I will see you in my dreams. Get labels, address postcards, mail Monday. And the surface of my hand shapes toward your skin, contours the smooth line of your back. I am walking down 93rd Street from Broadway. Then I turn the dark corner onto West End. Then I go in the door, see the doorman. The doorman recognizes me. I go right by. He doesn't even look up. In the elevator, there's a guy with white hair and a bulging stomach. He has a jacket that says flight instructor on it. And there's an old tarnished medal under the front label. But he tells me he just bought it in the store. Vintage, I think to myself. 1, 2, 3, eventually reaching my floor. I get out, go to my door, devil speaks through the radiator. My father takes a drink at dinner. He gets quiet and seems a little unsteady on his feet. My mother scolds him. I try to remember how old I am. 1, 2, 3. Cross out things I've done on the list. Retype the list. Go shopping. Make phone calls. Watch TV. You can't go to the park at night, obviously, but it's not so great in the country either. Bears. One famous naturalist bit a bear's nose off and saved his skin. But I saw a thin woman with a dog fake out a couple of muggers on the park stairs. They were left holding their hands out like statues, grasping only air. If I turn right from the subway, I come to the Love Store, open all night, I think. If I turn left, I head into the darkness that leads to my apartment. Inside, there is wood and loneliness, at least tonight, and the shadows of students who will come in the morning. I don't want to wake up. I think I see the lonely shadow of my father there tonight, but it's just in my mind. I don't even know if he is lonely, probably not. He's probably doing some physical task, taking a notch out of a piece of wood, brushing his teeth, changing TV channels, or just sitting on the couch in his bathrobe, breathing. The air is so still in my apartment. The wood breathes. The fresh laundry refrains from moving, but who knows what can happen if I keep looking. The blankets are fairly tidy, turquoise with a Mexican bird design. I've fallen in love with my houseplants, and I feel them breathing behind me, feeding me oxygen and taking up space. I don't want to go to sleep. Every night, images come and fool me. And then when I wake up, the whole display is back again. You have to follow a very careful route through the darkness. You can't go to the park. You can't stay too long at the Love Store. Eventually, you have to go home. And that means into the darkness, through the straight and narrow path, avoiding the muggers in advance. Luckily, it's only a short walk. How much darkness could I tolerate, alone at night, in the wild city? Lost in the woods, one tree after another, no end. Wake up, brush teeth, do yoga, fix breakfast, begin the day. You may have noticed that sometimes you look around your home and the whole thing has emptied out. No one has robbed you. Everything is there. It's just not familiar anymore. You stand in the middle of the room and there is sadness, but also you are oddly relaxed. There's nothing you can do, so you just stand there. The shadow of my father, the shadow of the plants, all the space lurking behind the windows in the dark. The path toward the apartment, tracing itself toward me, the mind loose like a windy paper bag. Who knows what's coming? This next poem is called Wire and Tape, and it represents an unfortunate association I had with someone who you will see why by the description of what he was like that follows. I think I'll stand for this one. You thought you could sum up a person's tonality with wire and tape. You wanted to scrape the edges off of anything that wasn't a square. You would go into a woman like a wallet, open the stars like a hat. When your words kept falling from the pile, you would keep gluing them on again faster. Your lip was a ragged curtain, but the teeth were straight and white. Your hand was a scar. You would keep stealing health and spread it out on trees. You swallowed stones when they attacked you. The battle inside made you happier. Even in life, you appeared dead and white, a sink without water. When they came for your ghost, you were braced against a wall, listening to the broken feet below. When you died, people were annoyed by the slant in the sidewalk. And the following poem is called San Francisco Cafe, and it is based almost 100% on an actual conversation which I overheard, which I thought gave a very interesting perspective on relationships. Just put a bag over their head and they won't know the difference. I'm good at reading for physical chemistry, but not long-term relationship. You could think of it as, if you're not the real thing, I don't have time for you. Or, it's been so long since I've gone out that I just don't give a fuck. Did you smell all those guys at the party? They all smell so good. They're all on drugs. Dark hair. He's not married. But he's the one who will be sitting with me. Margaret and I have gotten a little closer. We're beginning to confide in each other. The next poem is self-explanatory, and it's titled Entertainment Tonight. Interviewing Robin Williams, he says he doesn't see too many movies. Then the thin man with the wavy brown hair comments that Robin Wright just had Sean Penn's baby. See what happens when you play favorites? Says the beautiful blonde with the sky blue dress. The camera pans back as he smiles and replies, I'll take your word for it. Just before they fade for a commercial, the beautiful blonde throws back her head, her even bangs hanging like golden ropes, her laugh beautifully planned, her mouth wide open. The following two poems come from a series of mine that I call neighborhood poems, and they're a mixture of moments from my own childhood plus some more general images that come from the past in general. And this one is called In the Past It Was Different. Back then, long ago, things used to be different. You would throw a soft rubber ball and the lights would go out. Or a girl's skirt would brush against you, and a tree would take one step to the right. Summers were languid, and Kool-Aid would come slowly dripping out of giant red and orange pitchers. Grandma would sit up on the stoop, just fanning herself in the hot summer breeze, while down the road, old Bert would try to fix his rusty car from underneath. Goldfish would smile through their glass walls and swim smoothly just against the glass. And I would scream up to the window, Mom, Mom, Mom. And the second one from that series is called Your Street. To be aware of what your street looks like. To know what the cars look like compared to the cars of last year. To see exactly what the man's head looks like, who turns and smiles on the TV and tells you what to buy. To be aware of the exact shape of the TV while you're turning your head and thinking of what you want to eat. To be aware of the movements of the cars on the street as you're closing the door to your house. To know exactly what your house looks like compared to every other house on the street. To see exactly what your mother looks like and what she will look like in 26 years. And the last few poems come from a slightly different part of my stuff that's a little more, I don't know what the word would be, a little more dense. And the first two poems, actually the first three of these last short poems are from a group of poems called the No Self poems that are influenced by some of the teachings of the Buddha and also by some of my own observations of perception. They're an attempt to explore how the mind and perception create the world of objects, including the past and the present. And this first poem is called In a Frozen Thought, and it explores how the mind takes experience and then freezes it to turn it into an object of thought. In a frozen thought, an imagined eye sees. What it sees is a nothing, like a remembered ripple. Even after the water clears, the mind is still cloudy, hovering over its objects. Even this mind cannot find itself, cannot find its name in space. How does the thought form? How does it cohere in a perception that has no home? Who is the master? And the next one continues, talking about how the object comes up into the mind, then is frozen. And it's another take on the same thing. The it that's mentioned on the poem, mentioned at the end of the poem, is undefined, and somehow it's the real self behind the experience. And it's called Rose and Froze. Rose and froze, is and isn't. All leanings of head, all pursings of ear. Rise and cry, the flight into thinking. All presumptive minds of moments. Horses' manes flowing back from dripping sea into endless presumptive pasts. People and places, yes, I have seen them, yes, I have known them. All types of cuttings out of the frame of an unwavering field. If it is aware, it can see, but where is the object of seeing? It has frozen the field, it has cut itself off from its own hairline. And actually, I'll skip the third one and go on to one from a different series that's on a similar theme, but that's more extreme, and it's sort of like the body being part of the mind, and how the body arises from the mind and then is taken back into it. And in this case, this series of poems are poems of the yellow world, and in this series, yellow represents the dimension from which the personal self comes and goes back into. Painting. I am painting you yellow, 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 yellow. If it breaks off, I will put it on again. If it peels off, I will put it on again. If it drips off, I will put it on again. Blow on it till it is set like skin. Yellow, smooth, bare, clear, a police outline of the living in the shape of your soul. Yellow, yellow, yellow in the shape of life. Yellow, yellow, yellow in the amorphous shape of the source. Yellow, yellow, all yellow. Then I can add you back to the sun. And last, this final poem is sort of catching the flow of that whole process. It's a little hard to follow all the images, but I'm mostly reading it for the music. The cross-hatched ties of his mind, sketched in by a thinking breath. Quietly in the ear it intercedes, suggesting gestures that play across the face like music, some god, some goddess, a transparent animal of the air that crosses each border of sight, suggesting pictures, puzzles, horizons of future, each image winding across the forebrain in possibility, opening and closing like breath, and the face keeps flowing along the lines of thought, opening its thousands of tiny minds across each limit of flesh, and below, beyond, in the inner tissue, the blueprinting thinkers are working, beaming, knitting intelligence into the fire of life, this half-broken structure that keeps recreating itself, rebuilding its always stifled attempt, pressing out against the rebuke of all that is to suffer rebirth and regrowth. Yeah. Thank you.
That was Robert Epstein. And our next poet was in the last issue of Poet's Feet, and unfortunately couldn't make it to our celebration reading, and so he's back here tonight. Albert Zayden. Albert?
Gonna be 3 poems. Look at this knife, baby. It has been beaten and burned and beaten and burned. This is the sharp edge, and this is my flesh. Look at my skin, baby. This is a part in the flesh, and this blood, you see, is real, but it doesn't hurt, baby. Nothing hurts. Look at the coals, baby. They are red and hot and blue and not then white, like my skin seems to want to be, but it doesn't hurt, baby. Nothing hurts. Look at my voice, baby. It cuts and burns like nothing since, and though you think it might, it doesn't hurt. Nothing hurts if you relax. This is called Scheherazade. It's the theme of the storyteller. I carry in my pocket an instant Scheherazade. Should trouble catch me unawares, she is the dancing raconteur with satiating salves and 7 veils of voice. But first, good sir, a dream she smiles and bows her eyes, the one you thought to never have again, after so many times the same. How you were just a child then, and I was just a fairy tale, but now, look now, she riles before the second falls. My father fell from out his bed, from out his sleep, or life, who loved him so that only falling could that third disguise have then disrobed, exposed a heart shaped like a soul. Wouldn't have known but for a priest who saw one once. In pictures, so he told, and so he told, until a peer beneath the fourth would leave him locked outside his trinity forevermore. There's evermores, a drunkard's breath to spit his fifths irregular. She spins, her body centered on the glare of a natural rhythm. A natural rhythm tightens his belt and taps his waist. And this is how I do my drinking, and this is how I do my thinking. A stumbling foot might catch a train. Behold the barrier provocative, if not for awe, then for austerity. No one upsets the 7th veil. And this last poem is called The Whisper, and it's also about the storyteller. If I ask you to look at me, don't look at my face. Look inside it, at the insignificance of its dissected anatomy. A finished exterior might fool you into thinking something that I know is true. But I don't want to manipulate you, because I'm scared and not too sure of if I start where I will stop. So please don't look at me when I ask, and I ask you now to listen to me, but shut out my voice and alter my words such that they no longer mean what they mean, because my words, however free of calculation, will manipulate you, and I don't want you manipulated by me. I just want you to love me and believe everything I say without hearing or seeing me, for only then can I be sure that what
I'd like to probably express something that all of us who are rising to the stage
feel very keenly, and that is I'd like to express my gratitude to the muse impresaria that makes all this possible. One of the things that, as I listen to Lynn, John, Robert, Albert, is I get the feeling that we all are doing something very, very similar in trying to bring people to look at not just our face, but to look inside our face, like Albert just said. It's the phenomenon of empathy, and empathy is the theme of some of the poems that I'm going to be reading to you. Empathy, being able to stand in someone else's shoes, and if you listen to someone else who is standing in someone else's shoes, maybe it provokes the same thing in you. 10 years ago, I was on a Metro North train going out of state, and Metro North, perhaps some of you know, travels a tremendous cross-section of this society. And just before it leaves Manhattan, it traverses a part of Manhattan which you may think has been devastated by war. And on that Metro North train, which is for many people a commuter train, you can either watch it as a movie, or it can suddenly sort of grab you with its poignancy, or it can be something that inspires you to make sense out of a passing moment. So this poem is called A Littered Lot. A Littered Lot. And it's what you often see on the train as you pass that northern part of Manhattan. Out of the rubble they build shadows, joining together the shadows of things that were. It is play, or an instinct to change what is, or a way to transcend. Joined together, they act as one hand giving form to unplanned design. They seem so engaged through a commuter train window. Quite often you see many children playing in those littered lots. And that was written 10 years ago, and I somehow feel that if I were to make that trip again, I wouldn't see children playing in littered lots, because times have changed and children have become very different, and they do other things than young. Again, empathy, part of our society, part of the world was through an experience of the war in Vietnam, and 56,000 American soldiers died, untold numbers of Vietnamese died, and many came back wounded and maimed, and the conscience of this nation was profoundly wounded, affected, disturbed, stirred in many ways, and I think it's an unhealed wound. Perhaps many of us have forgotten or lost contact with that period of time because it is no longer immediately with us. Other sorts of tragedies are now immediately with us. But that one in particular, which was so singular in the life of this country, has sort of taken a back seat in consciousness. And I would like to sort of bring it back to focus with this. This is called Imagine What It Felt Like. We had walked around for hours in steaming boots, moist with sweat and fear. We were told we would find them murderously armed. We were messengers of deliverance, but no one was there to be saved. For days without end, we were suffocating in the sticky, sweet smell of jungle all around. And walking on all that soggy earth had the feel of moving through a latrine in long boots. And it was shit. From the bullshit in boot camp to the horseshit of field orders and death by friendly fire, it was all just one stinky mess. It wasn't a cause. It was a trap. An unspeakable, agonized tangle of tragedy and farce, and we were all caught up with it. And many of us, too many of us, got wrapped up by it and sent home in a body bag, like some bizarre gift from our government in thanks for a sacrifice made, if not a job well done. And we fell for it, and were maimed for it, and died for it. We were told to go to hell, and we went. Empathy. There are many people we notice in our lives who are important, who we pass by, who we cross paths with in our lives. And there are others who remain, as they say, part of the woodwork. And this is a statement about the many people who remain part of the woodwork. It's called The Never Once Beautiful. She once swayed among them, the noticed ones she was never one of. Her fragrance and color were not their match. In time, her youthful petals fell unnoticed by those she noticed in the bygone days. Now her hips unadorned provoke no sigh, entice no interest. Now is she truly invisible. A couple of years ago, I was crossing Fifth Avenue midday, and it was a green light. It was a clear day. It was around noontime. Many people were on the streets. And as I was crossing the street and almost reaching the other side of the sidewalk, I noticed this truck pickup van coming at me. And as we often do when we're crossing the street, I thought, well, you know, I've got the green light, and I'm crossing, and there are people crossing, and he started into the pedestrian walk, but I assumed he would stop. He didn't. The pickup truck accelerated, and suddenly I found myself between two headlights. And this pickup van was accelerating. I was stunned, put up my hands, and was hit by the truck, pushed back, not hurt. And in that stunned sensation, someone yelled out to me, "Why didn't you take his license plate?" And nothing, just like nothing registered. The fact that I had nearly vanished that way. And it was really upsetting to me, and I wrote this poem to sort of get it out of my system. It's called Accidental Colors. Blue, it was blue, the clear light from a blue sky, the blue of numbness making all invisible. Alone, seeing yourself, only yourself, seeing through the windshield, you saw green. It felt green. You wanted green, the clear sign from green. And inside, all else, whatever else, was outside, removed, not you. No talk, no feeling, nothing outside, nothing but the stunned anger of one who saw red. It was red. The red of your pickup truck as it turned the corner and raced toward nothing. Nothing you were aware of. No one you were aware of. I was that nothing, and you rushed toward my nothingness as if it weren't there, as if nothing would happen to that nothingness. Yeah. I think I want to end with a poem from, given the fact that it's December and people do all sorts of things to trees in December. Some time ago, I and another person did something to a tree, and I memorialized it in 40 words or so. I want to share it with you and sort of leave you with this feeling. It's called Christmas Tree. How gently the tinsel left your fingers to linger on those spiny leaves, and with what amusement filled the room to so adorn nature. Those branches, extended in giving, accepted the raiment, and with quiet graciousness sheltered the ribboned intentions of two in love. Thank you. Yeah.
Our next poet is someone that I met on a college campus, a very young woman, and I was astounded at her talent. Also coming in from out of state, so Leelannee Sloan.
Yeah. Right, I'd just like to thank Meg for getting us all together for And I'd also like to make a disclaimer. I write most of my poems about my boyfriend that I really love, but only after we've had a fight. This one's called Ice Sharp. I have seen the icicles dripping motionless from my windowsill, and have felt them as cold and slippery as your eyes. Stuck on you. Stuck, like wet skin on frozen metal. This one is titled, Fear is the Little Death. I'm afraid that he is bored with me. He looks over my head when I speak to him. He sleeps tight on his side of the bed. I'm afraid that he is sorry I'm here. His voice is like the clattering of dishes. His fingers don't curl around mine. I'm afraid he can't see me anymore. His hands are impatient on my body. He looks over my head when I speak to him. Okay, that's enough. She orchestrates her hair like an ocean. It falls in perfect ripples and waves around her calm face. It is beautiful to watch her hands. And this poem I wrote after I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And I thought of my roommate who's always putting herself down, so this is kind of an encouragement to her. Woman, you afraid, disgusted with your own body, squeezing and wishing and dropping your eyes. Woman, you've forgotten the power of hip and fat and muscle. You're scared of blood and hair and wrinkle. You want to be a baby, rosy-cheeked and smooth-legged. Woman, you ignore your power, you. Rise up naked in front of the mirror, in front of the wind. You gentle as the willow, you full of the moon. Long as you can't face the strength of your own body, them bastards gonna grind you down. Thanks.
Our next poet is Arnold Baker, who just made it in by the skin of his teeth on the Poet's Feet deadline. So there are deadlines by the book. Tony. I know.
Thank you. I did a group of work poems. Goodness. And a few other poems.
Wait, Arnold, is that microphone still not picking up? Terry?
Hello? Is that better?
Is that better?
Maybe you're really sorry.
The magic wheel,
Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm doing a group of work poems. And then I'm going to end it with some personal poems. The first one is called Where is JoJo? I work as a mover here in New York as part of an independent moving company. And while I'm trying to get acting work, so this is about the people that I work with. This one's called Where is JoJo? The sky is just starting to lighten up. As night slips away to morning, I'm 2¼ hours waiting in this cold, cold truck. I was here when I said I would be. Where's JoJo? He's not here, that's for sure. He's not at his mother's either. So much for the idea and plan to arrive in Washington early, get the job done and back again. Now everything will be delayed. My mind wanders to the different possibilities. My conclusions. He is sleeping in a warm bed. I know he will come. I just don't know when. This one's called Billie G. You come to work for what? We are all workers here. No bosses, no elite, special group, separate, apart. We are together. So why do you want to walk, Billie G? Tell me why. Are we not a part of the same reality, the same frustrations and disappointments, and yet we choose to work? It's like a game, you know. I want to work with so-and-so under these conditions, or else. What is gained by extortion? Another body takes your place.
And you are another day poorer in your pocket and in the eyes of your peers. What are you saying? Am I missing something? Perhaps a stand that we all can be a part of. Not one voice alone, in anger, against a wall, thick with misunderstanding, misrepresentation, misdirection, missing all together. You drink to get drunk, to get away from what, Billie Jean? Tell me what I'm missing. Maybe then I'll understand. Nobody likes to drink alone. This is called class difference. I'm a working man, which means blue collar, thank you. I work hard for what little I get. I go out clean in the morning, returning dirty, sweaty, and tired at night. My brain keeps on working at all times. No sick days, paid or non-paid holidays. I can speak intelligently on many subjects, in spite of my appearance, which to some suggest a certain lack of sensitivity, subtlety, knowledge, and taste. You know me for what I appear to be. Don't judge me too lightly. You might judge me wrong. Looking at you, looking at me, I see a mirror reflecting disappointment, limitations of involvements with expectations nil. Free yourself from yourself. Allow yourself. Take a risk. Take me. A working man, full of dreams, expectations, and fire. This is called number 5. Tommy knows about taking care. Aspetta. A good Italian meal. Some wine. Quality is meant to stand the test of time. It's a long, long time to be working as a mover. 18 years now. Just like reality. One day, everything starts adding up. All of the bumps and scrapes, twisted hands, broken fingers, strained backs, herniated disc, the cold, cold winters, the witheringly hot summers. Just like reality. The many, many, too many beers. All types of hard drinks, the ounces of smoke, grams of coke. Speed to keep you going, caps to slow you down. The office don't know, the boss don't care. Pass it around, pass it around. Patrick stopped his drinking. No more picking himself up off of the floor or anybody else. He's found a reason. She lives in Philadelphia. Just like reality. Riding again, fixing your teeth, feeling less pain rather than no pain. JoJo's got his music. He's also got the time. His time is our time, is waiting time, wondering what time he will show. Billie G's got his opinions, his statements, his reasonings, his likes, dislikes, battles, and bitches. And me, I'm going. These last 3 poems are sort of about relationships. This one's called Shock. You know, whenever you leave, I thought I was the only one affected. But you should see the effect on our apartment. Everything is in shock. like a tornado has passed through, scattered everything every which way, drawers open, clothes hanging out, boxes half empty, dishes in and out of the sink. The impulse to leave is a strong one, a creative madness fueled by desire. Me, I feel a certain sadness, knowing your need, not so much away from me, but towards him. So it's called sadness. I know that you know me, so you know what I did, because you set it up. Yes, there was a physical attraction. Yes, we made love without any complications. Everything was the way it should have been. The hard parts were hard, the soft ones sweet. Our bodies fit nicely, comfortably. But my heart remained the same, hidden in the sadness, hidden in the shadow of my sadness. And this last one, it's called Justina. A reflection, you come to mind, echoing your image in rippled waves of feeling, chills radiating down and out, head to toe. I feel the heat and passion of that first summer's campfire, that first roasted, toasted, foam encrusted, melted marshmallow in our mouths. Your musk drifts slowly, lingers lower, lower, settling as a spice upon my senses. Salty, sweet and hot, pungently overpowering. I surrender. I am with you once more.
And our next poet, who helped me arrange this wonderful setup, and I thank her and also Steve, who's head of West Bank, is Julia Brothers.
Hi. Thanks. Untitled, unnumbered. Time, a jealous lover in rhinestones, slips between pages of letters unsent, stealing jewelry of paste. Tawdry brilliance with jagged edges scrapes a soft gold locket, springing it open into emptiness. Curtain at the window fluttering theft. Small room in disarray. I, muted in confusion, stand amidst unspoken words, seeking solace in a night wind that whispers chaos as I press a broken locket to my chest. Untitled, unnumbered. It was an Ohio night, and the moon shone all the way across Lake Erie to Canada. Broad, rippling paths of silver slapped the sides of the boat. It was an August night, and I reached my hand to the stars and swirled them round my wrist in a lover's bracelet. It was a peaceful night, and I dipped my hand into the moonlit liquid and watched it trickle down my arm as my fingertips touched the black velvet sky. It was a soft night, and the wind slipped over my skin like satin, whispering in my hair that this was love. It was a quiet night, and the white-winged gulls soared silently. Voices from the far-off shore were lost in the Lake Erie sky. I was alone on a soft, quiet, peaceful August night in Ohio, and I closed my eyes to remember that perfection. Short sketch study. 15-year-old girl in the parking lot. Long, stringy hair dangling in split-end fury. Thumb pudgy, hooked in the waist of jeans too tight, mouth that aches to be hurt. White cotton shirt stretched over ripeness that makes her father lust and her mother jealous. Silver bangles shake cheap pretty, at shoulders broad, voices low, shadows dark, grumbling encouragement. 15-year-old girl in the parking lot learning about love. She gets on her knees and swallows bitterness. I went to the country for a writing thing where I got to stay in a cabin in the mountains. And it's amazing when you're in the middle of nowhere for 7 days what incredibly deep thoughts you come up with. So there are two very short poems that I decided to title with very, very long titles. So the first one is called A Short Poem in which the writer finds herself in a cabin in the middle of the woods, in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a rainstorm, with no vehicle to transport her to the nearest tavern, which is 5 miles away. That's the title. There are only 6 beers left in the refrigerator for the night. That makes me nervous. And that makes me even more nervous. What's better for nerves than a beer? But there's only 6 beers left in the refrigerator for the night. All right, after consuming those 6 beers, another short poem, during the creation of which the writer is sure that these words are the most brilliant ever to be laid down by a human hand, and after reading of which, the writer is shocked and humiliated, realizing this is the worst poem ever to be conceived by human mind, and decides never again to drink 6 beers, then write by candlelight, in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the night, in the middle of a rainstorm. That's the title. And you'll see what I mean. Our love was hatched on the surface of the putrid, stinking swamp. It fell to the bottom, slogging through murk and bile. Taking root in blackness, it grew toward the surface like billowing strands of vomit.
That's a great poem.
Thanks. Not like this, she said as she smoothed down her black lace shirt. Not like this, she thought. But honey, you're so sweet, he said. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry, baby. You're so... Oh, I'm sorry. Not like this, she thought as she heard every name but her own. Not like this, she said as he stumbled into the bedroom and she smelled the vodka in the air. He is silent in the other room and she is left with 3 words. Not like this, as she tugged on her shoe. Don't want to live like this. And she made up a tune in her head. Don't want to end like this. And she fought for a breath and heard names from the other room, and each name hurt and made her less than she was. All the hurt balls up and he sleeps. All the words pile up and he sleeps. Not like this, she thinks, and her mind won't stop at the duplicity of the months that have passed. Names are called out, and again each name makes her less than she is, and she gasps in a breath. Not like this, she thinks, as the rain splatters down in the courtyard. Not like this, she thinks, and the failure is much like the wet leaves. Wet and cold, she waits for her name. Not like this, she screams from a battered place inside. And the silence of the next room answers her. Just like this, he says in the silence, and she hasn't heard her name. Thanks.
And our next poet has made every single reading except for one, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So he goes way back to the original issue, which is spiral bound, and I still have copies of. Tony Anthony Torn.
Oh, is this for me?
It's
so big.
been waiting.
As usual, I came unprepared and snagged the sample copy.
Oh, that's where it went to. No.
Buy this, it's good. I was only going to read the poems I have in here, but since there's only two of them, I had a friend who's published in this, and he wasn't able to make it tonight because of scheduling conflict. I'm just going to start off reading his, and I'm going to read two of mine. I'll be gone. This is a poem by Daniel Pinchbeck, if I can find it. And it's called The Reader. When the reader comes to a comma, he skips to the end of the book, where the pages are covered with hair, and other readers, unaware of their desires, scrawl titles of books they want to read. Some other night. Some other night.
Mm-hmm.
When the reader reads the book, it often seems the book is about another book, which he can't find because either it hasn't been written yet, or it is so long out of print and missing from all the local libraries. Another day, another night. The sound of footsteps in the hall. The reader puts down the book and in the same motion reaches down for the shotgun hidden beneath the bed. These days it doesn't, wow, massive typo.
No way.
Sorry, Maggie. These days, you can't be too careful, and crime doesn't pay except for those who are good at it. The first blast sounds out like the period which follows the conclusion of the book's second chapter. He lost his place, now the day is over. If the reader can only stop reading the book, the characters repulse him. The plot doesn't interest him. The narrator is clearly insane. Page after page, night is crumbling. The eye of the book stares out at him. The hole in the book is made of human flesh. The reader grabs through the window of the book and something grabs onto him. These are not the words he meant to read. Okay, now to my stuff, which is a little different. This is called Munch Museum, which is the Edvard Munch Museum in Oslo. It's for Anniken. By your own definition, you do not exist. And my camera loses its potency every time I try to prove you wrong. Casual rape on a Czechoslovakian train. Years later in mourning, a recent abortion. You are uprooting my body in the guest flat of the Norwegian National Theater. Hours later, you're waiting on the lawn of the Edvard Munch Museum, waiting for me, pissed off. I am racing towards you late on the bus, sitting quite still, quite still. In the Oslo beer garden, you are a woman, and your dog's name translated means floating. In the cities and parks, you are a woman, and my sore, over-kissed undertongue You bit out my tongue, held it up to the sun, like an Aztec priest to his god. The Norwegian sun comes and goes, comes and goes. And in the Munch Museum, you are a woman keeping away from me now. With a slow mounting anger, you are a woman staring at his paintings surrounding the wall. At the pale, twisted hands, and the eyes thick with death, at his eyes and his hatred of women. At the pale, blonde wood, and the skin drained of blood, at this love and his hatred of women. The steam from the train, the child destroyed, the joy and the terror of life, and his hatred of women. His hatred of women. Hatred of women. And this last poem I'm going to read is called Your Structure. Yes, I want to do you violence. But first tell me, what is your structure? I myself have never been so close to Shiva the Destroyer. Where do my nervous hands discover the seam to tear, the grain to split you open, that pearly center spring, where your car goes over the rail? Forgive me if I must make myths. Where are you in all of this? Your eyebrow in the whore's room. This is insane for August. August, when we want to be so overwhelmingly alone, so flint spark in the solitaire, completely on vacation, the custom on the continent. I think we have achieved this. I think we want 24 lovers dancing on a fish hook. I think we may want to kill anyone who gets too close. I think this is an achievement. I think I want to live in your mouth. Thank you.
And now we have Frank Ambriz, playwright, poet, writer, bullshitter, whatever.
I was gonna read 3 poems, but I decided I'm just gonna read one.
Aww.
It's actually more of a note to someone who used to live with me. It's a note, like a memo kind of thing. It's called Note to My Lover. You asked me if I love you, I said yes. But I just met you and I don't know if it's love or lust. You say you love me and it doesn't make me happy. Maybe I don't love you like I say I do. And it makes me sad because I'm lying to you and me. P.S. Feed the dog on your way out. Love, Frank.
And finally, there's Margaret Kruszewska. This will take approximately another hour and a half, so very short. This is from a series that I started when I moved here 3 years ago called Traveling with Myself. Years of living in the city has taught her to always take her purse with her. Even getting up for a second from her receptionist chair on the 28th floor of the big firm was long enough for some messenger to grab it. They were fast, like tropical mosquitoes, shiny black bicycle-type legs, not an ounce of unused flesh on them. They were the only ones in the city who knew how to dress for the day's weather. She always watched for them in the morning to figure out what to wear that day. From her apartment window on the 4th floor, she also heard horses' hooves, Around 10 every night, the mounted police clapped down, and occasionally a horse and buggy. Sometimes, already well into her dreams, she thought she was in a Victorian boarding house. Strangely, during that moment of horses' hooves, all other sounds ceased. It was a perfect transport into another world. They all wanted that anyway, a perfect transport into another world. The transvestite prostitute wanted to be in a woman's world. The porn queen stars on 8th Avenue wanted to be in a man's fantasy. And she wanted to be transported somewhere out of her receptionist chair, pocketbook and all, into her next life. This is a poem that I haven't read for a couple of readings, but people like to hear it, so I'll do it. It's written in Polish. I'm from Poland originally. It's entitled, the translation is, That Which I Remember, I Now Don't Remember at All. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Tam, gdzieś dawno, bardzo, bardzo dawno, ja trzymałam wszystko blisko, białe blisko i często znalazłam coś czerwone, też czerwone ręce, czerwone nogi, czerwone usta, ale nieładne kwiaty. Zawsze duże i rozkwitnięte, tak jak ten dom albo ten pociąg, o wiele większy niż ja, za duże. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam, tylko wyrazy, jeden słów wyciągnięte przez te duże lasy, lasy bez grzyb, bez jagód. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Jakieś łąki, jakiś słup jeszcze stoi i ciągnie mnie przez jakieś góry i jakiś ołtarz tam stoi, jakieś ludzie. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. Wszystko trzęsie się, wszystko budzi. Otwieram bramę i wszystko mi nudzi. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. To, co ja pamiętam, już więcej nie pamiętam. So I translated that finally. After 2 years, I do have a translation.
Yeah, that's about time.
I know, you all were wondering what the hell she's talking about all these years. My recipe for pierogi. No. It loses the musical element, obviously, but this is the translation. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. There, somewhere distant, very, very distant, I held everything close and cool and white and close, and after even found something red, also red hands, red lips, red legs, but not lovely like those flowers, always too big, always too big, just like the house or that train. So much bigger than me, too big. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. Only words, one word, stretched out through these long, long woods, woods without mushrooms, woods without berries. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. Some strange meadow, some strange pole stationed there that pulls me through some strange mountains, to that altar, to those people. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. Everything is shaking, everything is ringing. I open the gate and everything is confusing. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. That which I remember, I now don't remember at all. And this is from a play written a couple of years ago called Mother Ghost. This is just a small section from it. I thought Mother was dying, but I wasn't sure till I saw the bandages, tubes, aspirin, morphine, needles, bedpans, bones creaking, bones aching, bones not holding their own weight, bones too wide for a too wide body that shifted from side to side with so much pain that it looked like hatred to me. When I saw her look at him, I saw her hate him and tell me stories of the time you laughed so hard you could cry with me, Mama. Cry with me. Cry with me. I have quite a long poem that I've been working on for the past year. Parts 1 and 2 are published in this issue, and I have part 3. I'll just read you the one before that. Writing the family history. In the family, the females abound who do not wed and do not birth. They are strong and become both mothers and fathers to the children that await them. The men do not fare as well. In the small village, cousin marries cousin. He is tall, all angle formed from jaw to ankles, and she is round like goose down pillows. This village has been raped. Russians, Germans, it is always one or both. Massacres, massacres, and more massacres every other decade, it seems. The unspoken is even more horrific. There were also these Poles there in those camps. Half of his family vanished and despised gypsies, and after a certain point, really anyone who looked at you crooked, causing such deeply embedded grief, brutality becomes the learned weapon, paranoia, the chivalrous shield, and flowers everywhere, wrapped around maypoles, outdoor altars in the hayfields. This is where one cousin boy died, my age, fierce red hair, his motorbike the only joy of being fast in this cow's town family village. It would have been from alcohol otherwise. The silent dreams that waken me worse than gunshots I heard in that old house on Beach Street. Red and white eagle, Polish flags flying in the middle of little Puerto Rico. Nationalism at its best. Fierce, defiant, and ignoring the obvious. And always flowers everywhere. Red poppies this time, tucked into 1950s baggy men's jackets with war medals. Veterans with ulcers and canes. This is what remains of the old land. Writing the Family History, Part 3. Bridgeport Station, a place you pass through, lights too unwelcoming to stay very long, newspaper a day late, uncomfortable hum irritates you into leaving. Chairs you can't sleep in, smells of dirt washed with ammonia, one too many times, one too often. Pinball looks amusing for maybe 2 games. You turn to the view. Parking available now. 3 lots already empty and they're building another. Wonder if even the mob has interest here anymore. There used to be Molly. He was the mob to me. Running numbers out of Riccio's newsstand, wore a trench coat even in August. Every day comes into Owen Food Shop at 3:30, a pastrami on rye with mustard and pickles, but only Mary could make it right, 'cause he would tell her the right number combination sometimes. Daddy insisted they controlled everything, along with the Jews and the blacks and the Puerto Ricans. No one is interested in Bridgeport anymore. I don't think they ever were. But we made lives there somehow. Walked to St. Michael's in white shoes and dresses, stepping on broken glass all the way. Kept our yard with flowers everywhere, miniature roses climbing into my room. We had lives there somehow. One day the 64 Impala's gone and someone walks in one Saturday afternoon and takes the radio. It was months before we got another to hear Kemska on Sunday from 10 to 1, a nasal American Polish twang. Kielbasa from New Britain. We were not part of it, really. This is very different from the rest of the world, or even Connecticut. In LA in August. Prologue. Through a boy's desperate attempts to show me his love, stumbling all over 49th and Broadway with a pertinent rose before we both vanish and reappear as a girl and a boy on the Santa Monica bus, all under sunglasses. This also desperate, although much older and subtle, vanish. 1. In the stiffness of this air, in the barely moving trees, in this constant threat of pain behind my eyes, the threat of what has already happened, always hovering in those high hills so dense and removed, remembering others who have wandered through this desert air. 2. We were all suspended in time, waiting to ascend, instead merely uplifted through borrowed time, more than anything else. 3. How heavy it all feels today. Just below the surface, just a little inspiration for this poem by Doris Lessing from the Golden Notebook. None of you ask for anything except everything, but just for as long as you need it. Just below the surface. Afraid I'd be the one to love you too much, so like that girl in Connecticut, just like me, I say. You wonder of the silence, the news blackout, baby, I say through my lack of enthusiasm in writing you the major achievements of my head, that tortured part in your own body, your major powerhouse, always working overtime for productivity. Yes, more productive Paul, more product Paul, more power Paul, more pride, and never just sit and love where you're sitting, with whom you're sitting, and on what you're sitting. Never just feel your heart pounding and see that it drives the blood to your organ. I speak now of that organ which you split open while producing, high up above the stage. It spilled on your satin women, on the golden cloth you enveloped me, and spilled so poetically that everyone thought it was part of the show. You didn't mind the theatricality of it all. This is not the neat subcision you expected. You wanted so much to leave, like that girl in Connecticut. You loved with all your might until it was time to go for you, that is. Like smoke rising, a rather black smoke, not one of joy or relief, but one of dementation, or the non-smoke in my dream, the one you left on to boil your water and didn't notice that the fire wasn't with it, and so you left me with possibly some poison. I only detected it by the smell, finally, a fire without the flame, yes, the smell only. I am sometimes consumed in it to the point of sorrow that the two of us fucked over and over and over and couldn't get through to each other, fucked over and over to weeping, to exhaustion, to hysteria, to oblivion, but never to acceptance, never to surrender, never to each other's hearts. We remained two people fucking each other. I cry now from the frustration of loving that man who never knew love, but who knew hate so well that I somehow thought it would transform in my own genitals, in my own warm insides, if only I had you closer, and perhaps crying, and not so afraid of your own warm insides, terrified of anything floppy, flabby, terrified of yourself being like this, perhaps even wanting someone inside you, and not just putting yourself there. I wonder if there is any joy in that at all. Your control, man, your control is phenomenal. And finally, new series of poems that I wrote while on a trip to New Orleans in the springtime when I had just met Lorenz, and so these are two sweetest Lorenz. New Orleans love poem. Day 1. On highway, Rhett Butler Trucking Company on Bourbon Street, orgy show wrapped in candy colors, overripe pink and Mississippi blue. Those wreaths blowing over my beignet, where are you? Day 2. Camellia sounds in Satchmo Park, soft sun on my neck leaves marks anyway. Beans in pupa, Dixie suds, would like to see you dance tonight. Day 3. Orange, red, Beausoleil, blackened voodoo for beer, just the right Sazerac, wet green leaves, after rain, so many notes in my ears, brought your smile to the maple leaf. Day 4. Blues under an almost blue sky, Zydeco to my toe, feet kissing the ground, wailing, howling, and more, your lace fingers guiding my back. Day 5. Black Indian colors today, though really hearing voices from the lost nation, a weariness only murmurs can revive. Must rest under the spirit's tent, or I will think of this and cry. It is cool there and moves me like no other but you.